It's the Kenny Everett Naughty Joke Box. Starring Kenny Everett, Lennie Bennett, Willie Rushton, Barry Cryer, Junkin, Fogwell, Flax, and introducing Pat Mooney, here's Kenny.
Gentlemen, there was this cunt with big tits. Good evening and welcome to my naughty joke box. Yes, here we are in Caesar's Palace, Las Vegas. Or is it a grotty little Soho shithouse? We're ready to whip your brains to cream with jokes that Lord Thames and the Bede wouldn't let us do. But don't worry, Mum, we won't go too far. This is disgusting.
Then why are we doing it?
And now, who's going to be the first to get up and do some disgusting material? Who better than Mr. Filth himself, John Junkin!
Terrible coming on after a dwarf. May I say, not only is it a great pleasure for me to be here tonight, it is also bloody inconvenient. Lady went into the doctor. She said, I have a very embarrassing problem. He said, what is it? She said, well, I have to do a lot of public speaking. She said, and I'm perfectly all right in private life, but every time I get up to speak in public, I am bothered by attacks of the wind. And the doctor said, what do you mean? She said, well, it doesn't matter what I eat. It's obviously based on nerves or something, but every time I get up to speak in public, there's these terrible eruptions of wind. And the doctor said, well, would you like to show me? He said, what do you do? She said, amongst other things, she said, I'm the president of the Women's Institute. He said, well, stand behind my desk and pretend that I'm the Women's Institute and give me a talk. And so she said, all right. She got behind the desk and she said, ladies, I would like to say regarding the report for last year that some members are not... The doctor said, I see, that's fine. He said, now I understand your problem. And he went to the corner of the office and he got a 7-foot pole with a hook on top. And she said, what are you going to do with that? He said, open a window. Fellow was walking home from work one night and he suddenly passed a shoe shop, and in the shoe shop was a pair of shoes made of genuine crocodile skin, and he fell deeply in love with them. And he paid 75 quid for them, and he put them on, and he went home, and he stood there, and his wife said, your supper's on the table, and carried on reading her Mills and Boon. So he finished his supper, and he put his feet up on the table, and she took no notice. She just cleared the table. And he was very, very annoyed, and he walked around on the furniture, and she didn't say anything. And eventually she went up to bed, and he thought, she's going to notice my shoes. So he went up, and there she was with a hairnet and the Mills and Boon still going. Walked across the bed, nothing. So, absolutely furious, he went into the bathroom, took everything off except his shoes, and he walked back and he stood in the middle of the bedroom. He said, "Oi!" She said, "What?" He said, "Do you notice anything?" She looked up from the Mills and Boon. She said, "I've seen that before." He said, "Look where it's pointing." She said, "Shame you didn't buy a new hat." Little boy and a little girl walking home from school. The little boy said, "Excuse me," and he went behind a tree. And the little girl, being like all little girls are, went round and looked. And he was relieving himself, and she said, "What's that?" He said, "That's my tinkler." She said, "Oh, my dad's got two of them." He said, "Two?" She says, "Yeah, a little one for doing wee-wees and a big one for cleaning the au pair's teeth."
Is it in?
Yes.
Does it hurt?
No, it feels beautiful.
Would Madam care to try the other one on?
Oh, yes, please.
Say when.
Right after the next drink.
There was this nun in the convent garden, vegetable patch, right? Sprinkling seeds. Sprinkle, 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 sprinkle. Crowd of crows comes down. Peck, 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 peck. Fuck off, she says. Go on, fuck off. How dare you? Fuck off. Mother Superior comes out from behind the cloister. Sister Teresa, you mustn't say that word. Just say shoo, and they'll fuck off just the same. Who's next? Gizzard Puke here. Supply any class for the evening? You may notice the accent. I borrowed it off one of my old characters. I haven't got too many, I've got to make them last. You may wonder why I have so much class. It's because I went to a very exclusive school. Not just anyone can go there, you got to be sent there by a judge. I remember one day we were sitting there in a classroom and a teacher came in and said, OK, you turds, we're going to have a different kind of lesson today. It's like an observation test. I'm going to hold various objects behind my back and give you a brief description of them, and you got to try and guess what they are. Right. I've got something behind my back now. It's yellow, and you can eat it. I said, it's a banana. She said, no, it's a lemon, but shows your thinking. She said, I've got something else now behind my back, something else. It's red, and you can eat it. I said, it's an apple. She said, no, it's a plum. Shows your thinking. Just then, a little kid in the corner said, hey, teach, I got one for you. I got something in my hand under the desk. 3 inches long, red at the end. Teacher said, you filthy little bastard. He said, it's a matchstick. Shows your thinking, no? Here, did you hear about this little boy who, 5 years old, got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, on his way past his mother and father's room, pokes his head through the door, watches for a few minutes, and then says, how do you like that? And they tell me off for sucking my thumb. Ladies and gentlemen, Leonard Bennett, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. There's always something very reassuring about following the interval. Yeah. Doesn't make it. Thank you, Ken, for the introduction. They're terrific. That got a lot of class, but it's all third. Ladies and gentlemen, to tell you the truth, I don't even want to be on the damn cassette. I don't do this kind of thing. I do a game show. I won't even mention the name of it. It's humiliating. It's the kind of show that people watch if they find blankety blank too intellectually challenging. And I'm here tonight as part of the Brit Eklund Youth Opportunity Scheme. Very much like William Rushton, I came totally unprepared. I thought it was about time somebody talked about Everett himself. Oh. Quite right. What do we know about this man?
Oh, dear.
Space traveller, intellectual.
Faggot.
I didn't say faggot, you did. I'm not saying he's a faggot, but he's about to make a new film called Tinker Tailor, Soldier, Sailor, 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 Sailor. It is a delight to be in the presence of such great megastars here tonight. Robert Powell's here tonight. Nice to see you, Robert, with a sweater with, what is it written on it? Perrier written on his sweater. It's because he walks on it. And I thought we might discuss tonight Everett, the man. What do we know of Kenny Everett? We know, of course, that he was the man that invented the surface-to-air heat-seeking suppository. But I have in my hand a piece of paper given to me by Ken's own personal press representative, Ken Livingston. Let me tell you about Ken. Ken was born in Derbyshire, just outside of wedlock. Many of you might not know this, but Kenny Everett, when he was a child, had personal complaint. He wet the bed. His grandfather cured him. He bought him an electric blanket. Because one of the great influences on Kenny Everett's life was his dear grandfather, a wonderful man in many ways, his grandfather. His own grandfather had his own career. He was a missionary to Africa in the 1930s. There's a bit of scandal attached to it. Ken doesn't talk about it because in 1937 his grandfather was dismissed. He was unfrocked for committing a certain offence. It was all to do with an ostrich. Apparently he came across it with its head buried in the sand and one thing led to another. Most embarrassing for Ken because he said to his grandfather, how could you do a thing like that with an ostrich? And he said, I was okay for the first 5 miles and then I got out of step. He grew up a happy child. A little later in his life, his first job, he was a contortionist. A little later after that, he was arrested for indecent exposure. He was worried in case he'd had it hanging over his head for the rest of his life. And his first job, according to this, was at the London Zoo. He was sacked for putting Valderma on the leopards. And as part of his ongoing career, he joined the army. They had a long military tradition in the Everett family. His father was a prisoner of war for 5 years in England. And Ken went for his army medical, and the doctor said, take all your clothes off, and he did. And the doctor left, which is humiliating for a man. And Ken said, what are you laughing at? And the doctor went, oh. And Everett said, we're only going to fight them, aren't we? And, he left the army and he came into show business, which we're all very grateful because Ken, I mean, many people say he's a superstar, he's a megastar. Some people say he's a boring little fart. But,
You know, darling, I've always had a soft spot for you.
So I've noticed.
Now it is time for a break, so let's break.
Who's the next one? Pat Boone. And now here's someone, hand on heart, please. And now here's someone I know nothing about at all. Pat Mooney.
Thank you. I feel very unique here tonight. I'm the only comic I've never heard of before. Nice to see you all. Looking up with a little bit of Irish news about the acid bath murder in Dublin. The murderer lost his hand taking the plug out. That's not too blue, is it? No? Just for a change, I'm going to do this act in a North of Ireland accent. I come from a little fishing resort in Northern Ireland called Belfast. You've heard of Belfast, have you? There's no inflation though. The prices are going up, but the shops are coming down. I went over there last week to do a television show in Belfast. I was scared stiff going home to Belfast. I bought myself a bulletproof vest, and a leprechaun shot me up the arse. My pal Murphy, he's Irish, through a friend of his father's. He's a great character, Murphy. He's been married twice. He lost his first wife in a wishing well. His name's Mick Murphy, but all the girls in Ireland call him Nicholas, because that's how he normally leaves them. He went to the doctor. He says, Doctor, I'm very worried. He says, when I make love to my wife, the first time I make love to her, I'm freezing cold. Freezing. And the second time, I'm all boiling hot and sticky and sweaty and perspiring all the time. The doctor says, I've been a doctor for 25 years. I've never known this before. I'll have to examine you. And he gives him a cardiograph and blood pressure and kidney test and everything. He says, I can see nothing wrong with you. You better send your wife in. And Mrs. Murphy came in. He says, can you explain this, Mrs. Murphy, that when he makes love to you, the first time he's freezing cold, and the second time he's all boiling hot and sticky and sweaty and perspiring all the time? Oh, she says, easy enough, doctor. The first time's in January, the second time's the middle of August. I've got a friend of mine in Ireland. He's suffering from sexual impotency. And he went to see his Dr. Rafferty, and Dr. Rafferty says, you're a very lucky man. He says, there's a new thing coming on the market. He says, straight from Africa. It's powdered rhino horn. So they get these horns of the rhino, they crush it into powder, you take a spoonful every day for a week, and after a week you're flying. And he took it for 7 days, and every time he got an erection, he used to charge Range Rovers. Let's go. What about that fella in Belfast? He hated his wife that much, he wrote Protestant on her back and sent her down the Falls Road. And she came home that night with £60 in her pocket because he couldn't spell Protestant.
I've never said a naughty word despite what you have heard. I'd never say a naughty word, 'cause I'd feel like a turd.
I don't believe it. It's Emmanuel, right here next to me. It's my lucky day. Together we'll reach the heights of ecstasy. You with all that, and me with my burning desire for the bizarre. Come with me now, my little hot face, to erotica. That's where you want to go, isn't it?
No, Luton Airport.
Barry Carrier!
If you believe I'm the top of the bill, do you want to buy this watch? Wouldn't give this spot to a leopard. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The anticlimax is now on the stage. Which reminds me of the incident when I said to my wife, when you reach a climax, why didn't you ever say anything? She said, you're never there. Pat Mooney and I were speaking earlier this evening about our acts, and we thought it would be fun to swap them. So, here is Pat Mooney's act. Ever seen a human sacrifice before, folks? I'd like to welcome you to this Friends of Gaddafi hot pot supper. The producer of this show, an old friend, not of mine, rang me and I paid for the call. And an interesting man. He's got a Braille copy of Penthouse in his car. And he, I don't know what he does, but his self-winding watch shows December the 18th, 1997. And he asked me along, and I said, I don't tell jokes. My big thing is magic, but that's just my opinion. And it's nice to be here at the Hollywood Bowl, because usually I work hotels, and when you work hotels, you get a whole different slant on things, because hotels are owned by Arabs these days. The whole sphere of influence has shifted, hasn't it? Why do people think Arabs are so clever? Because they're in oil, you know. Sardines are in oil, nobody thinks they're clever. I did a football dinner at Wembley. I met Britt Ekland, bless her. And we were with a lot of Norwegian businessmen. This is absolutely true, and I know nothing about Norway, apart from the fact that Britt told me she worked her way through it one summer. And no, she's lovely. She's known in our business as Martini. Anytime, but the Norwegian businessmen were telling me about a commercial they'd made, which was a great failure, because you know the big thing is Danish lager in this country. And the Norwegians had made a lager, and they call it Pjors, which I think just means lager in Norwegian. And they made a commercial, and it was a classic, because the man's voice said, looking for something different, this one is Norwegian. Looking for something light, bright, with a bit of a bite, get Pjors, the Norwegian lager. So next time you're looking for something that little bit different, say to your barman, up yours. But be careful, his knee may refresh parts other barman cannot reach.
Thank you, the pump will do fine!
Where I was like a little boy in a shop, He's watched all the John Wayne films, and he's standing in a shop with a cowboy hat and a toy cap gun, and he walks up to the counter and says, "Stick your hands up, I want ice cream." And she says, "Do you want crust nuts?" He says, "Do you want your tits blowing off?"
Good job, that. Ooh. Hello, darling.
Hello.
Ooh. Would you like to come and play? You know, you and me, together, alone, the two of us, making beautiful music. I mean, say the word and... Oh my God. I mean, how about it, eh?
That's all right with me. Go right ahead.
Well, I don't really do rude jokes. I'm not really into sex because I'm married. Really, my wife and I don't have all that great a relationship. In fact, like, the only time we're really sexually compatible is when we've both got a headache. And... Should I tell you something personal? We had a row, you know, after all these years, we had a row a couple of weeks ago, and I said to her, "You won't want to hear this, but I'm divorcing you." She said, "Why?" I said, "Because you're no good in bed." And she said, "What have I done?" I said, "Nothing." And I said, "It's not what you've done, it's what you don't do." She said, "How do you mean?" I said, "Well, you don't move and you don't moan. I like you to moan when I make love to you." And she said, "Well, after all these years, I deserve a chance. Give me a chance." I said, "Okay, I'll try." So we went to bed, and this is personal. And we started to make love, and she said, "Now?" I said, "No, later." And she said, "Now?" I said, "No, I'll tell you when." And she said, "Now?" I said, "Okay." And she said, "You don't give me enough housekeeping." Because, you know, when you are married, you know, there are problems for married people. Like, when you make love, and this is, again, is personal. A lot of men, when they make love, find it difficult to restrain themselves. You know what I mean? Of course you do. Sometimes it's all over a little bit too quickly. It's biff bam, good night ma'am. And for men like that who do suffer from that problem, there is a secret. What you have to do is you have to think about something completely different while you're making love. True. My hobby is football. I love football. So when I make love to my wife, to make the ecstasy more prolonged, I think about Tottenham Hotspurs. And I went home the other night. My wife was obviously in a very sort of passionate mood because she'd left her teeth in. And we went to bed. And I put my arms around her and started to stroke her and caress her and cuddle her. And she was pulling the hair at the back of my head. And I was thinking about Spurs playing Arsenal. And she was digging her nails in my back and moaning all those little sweet words of love like... And Spurs got this free kick. Just outside the penalty area. And she was beating on the wall with her fists and really going berserk, and I couldn't make my mind up. I thought, should I let Glenn Hoddle have a shot? Or should I let Osvaldo Ordilas chip it into the penalty area so somebody can head it into the net? And while I was thinking about it, she went to sleep. Wasn't bothered though, because Spurs won 3-1. And
The Kenny Everett naughty joke box. The Kenny Everett naughty joke box.
This woman opened her door one morning and there was 2 dogs on her doorstep playing mums and dads. You know, having a leg over as Foggy would explain it, you see. And this woman was disgusted. She threw a bucket of water over them and nothing happened. Hit them with a broomstick, nothing. Banged them in the coal scuttle. Couldn't separate them. She's disgusted. She rang the vet and told the vet the whole story. And the vet says, tell them they want it on the phone. She says, well, that stopped them. He says, well, it's just stopped me. Little Jewish couple walking through Hyde Park, and a flashy came from behind a tree and went like that. And his wife said, "Hi, what a lovely bit of lining." This girl went to the doctor for an examination. The doctor says, "Take your T-shirt, let me have a look at you." She took her T-shirt off and she's got a big L on her chest. Doctor's fascinated. He says, where did the L come from? Oh, she says, I go out with this Liverpool supporter and he wears this T-shirt with an L on it, and when we make love, the passion and ecstasy, it comes right through his shirt and comes on my chest and leaves that mark. He says, fascinating. He says, put your shirt back on. Come and see me in 7 days' time. Following day, take your shirt off, takes it off, and there's a big P on her chest. He says, it's got me fascinated. What happened to the Liverpool fellow? Oh, she says, I'm going out with a Preston North End supporter now. He says, great, very interesting. Put your shirt back on. He says, back a week later, walks in. She's got a big M on her chest. Doctor says, don't tell me, Manchester United. She says, no, Wigan Athletic. This fella died and he's lying out in the funeral parlour, and the mortician rings up his wife. He says, Mrs. Jones, we've got your husband's body here in the funeral parlour, but we're having difficulty in getting the lid on the coffin because he's died with this massive erection. She says, we can't get the lid on the coffin. The only thing we can do is amputate his penis and place it in his rectum to bury him in one whole piece. So she says, fascinating, she says, you go home, you do it. If you think that's the thing to do, you do that. But don't put the lid in the coffin till I see him for the last time. He said, your wish is our command, Mrs. Jones. So she goes around about 2 hours later, and he's lying there in the coffin in his best Sunday suit, and there's a little tear coming out of his right eye. And she bends over the coffin and she says, fucking hurts, doesn't it? Clean ones are the best, aren't they? Oh, hang on, Barry Crow's having a go. What, have I done something? Were you going to do that? Wait, sorry, listen. I'm glad I got on first. Listen. Tell you what makes me laugh, actually. My brother's a barber in Belfast, this is true, and a fella came in with one arm for a shave. He sees the one arm, he's very nervous, threw the towel around him, started shaving him, and he cut him on the ear, and cut him on the cheek, cut him under the chin, cut him in this cheek, cut him in this ear. There's blood everywhere. And he's trying to hold a conversation with him. He says, have you been in here before, sir? Fella says, no, I lost this arm during the war. This is little Irish woman, Mrs. Murphy. She says to her husband, she says, Paddy, she says, you're not half the lover you used to be. She says, you used to be the best lover in the village. Not only from me, but from all the girls in the village. You're a great lover. She says, you're losing your potency. Get round to that doctor and see what he's got to say about it. And he comes home that night, pinstripe suit, bowler hat, briefcase, umbrella, patent leather shoes, all the gear. She says, what are you doing dressed up like that? He says, I went to see that doctor with Jesus, and he told me I was important. And if I'm going to be important, I'm going to dress important. I'll do this in a Belfast accent. This wee Belfast woman went to the doctor. She says, Doctor, I'm very worried. She says, me and my husband Paddy have been happily married for 10 years. And I only found out yesterday that he's impotent, she says. And all our lives we wanted to have a wee baby. And I've been watching these documentaries on television about test tube babies and everything. I was wondering, is there ever anything you could do to help me have a little baby? The doctor says, of course there is, Mrs. Murphy. I'll try and explain to you as scientifically simple as possible. What we do, we keep quantities of the male sperm in a deep freeze in bottles. And when the moment is right, we can inject this into your ovaries. And in 9 months' time, you can have a little baby without the necessity of copulation. She says, that sounds a bit scientific to me, doctor. She says, I'm not sure whether I understand. You're not. You mean no more of that, no more of that nasty business on a Saturday night when he comes in from the pub, breathing Guinness all over me. Me just lying there thinking to myself, oh, Jesus, I'm going to miss Starsky and Hutch again tonight. Oh, must dust those cobwebs in the morning. Oh, she says, thank God, I never fancied that. I think it's unhygienic. You just pump this stuff into my overalls, and that's all there is to it. Doctor says, Mrs., you're embarrassing me. Just take your clothes off, lie on that couch, and I shall go to the laboratory and bring a bottle back from the deep freeze. And 5 minutes later, the doctor arrives back with his trousers slung nonchalantly over his shoulder. And the woman sat bolt upright on the couch. He says, what's the matter, doctor? Oh, he says, I'm very sorry, there's no bottles left. You'll have to have a draft. Tell you one while I'm winning. Listen before I go. this woman... This woman sitting in the house one night and her husband comes home, he says, listen, love, he says, I'm fed up with our sex life. It's getting very boring. She says, I'd like to do something different. She says, what do you mean? He says, I'd like to do it doggy fashion. She says, no, you're not getting me in any of those perversion things. He says, look, you can have anything you want so long as you give me this wish. He says, I just want it doggy fashion. She thinks for a while. She said, well, do it on 3 conditions. She says, what's the 3 conditions? He said, well, first of all, she says, I'd like a mink coat. He says, you've got your mink coat, you've cracked it. What's the second condition? She says, I'd like a fortnight's holiday in Florida. You've got that. He says, what's the 3rd condition? She says, you take us to a street where nobody knows us. You're very kind. I'm getting off while I'm winning. Good night and God bless you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Pat Mooney! Hey! Willie Rushton!
One hell of a warm-up, Kenny. This is extremely embarrassing for me, as I am not in any way a stand-up comedian, being joke blind. I'm also a stranger to glitter, but it's a great privilege to share with you this tinselly view of what is usually enjoyed only by Dorothy Squire's gynecologist. I told these people here of my quipslexia, and they've handed me a millboard with these jokes on it. So I said, all right, I'll read them to them. Joke 1. I never liked the word homosexuals. I've always thought them as poobs, which is the plural of poof. 2 poobs in lift. The trouble is I can't do voices either. I can do Harold Macmillan, but it's very unlikely. He can play the lift operator. Lift operator, going down. First poov, no, just conversing. I should have been a comedian. Joke 2. I said, no, this is going a bit far. No, A, I'm quite fond of Norman St. John Stevens. And B, I do draw the line at any joke involving a charabanc load of nuns and Oliver Reed. Joke 7. Now, this is quite nice. This is ethnic humour. This is an ethnic joke, Canadian joke, so it should be very entertaining. It concerns an absent-minded Mountie who jumped off his whistle and blew his horse. That's all there is of that. Joke 10. 2 more poobs, or perhaps they're the same ones, you never know. They never name these people. First poov, how's your bum? Second poov, shut up. First poov, so's mine, it must be the cold snap. And even had a certain topicality. If it's warm where you are, we'll press the fast forward and it'll be... Good Lord. No, I don't know. No, joke 12. Forget joke 12. Joke 14. 2 more. That's 6. So far in this entire turn, there's been 1 heterosexual. And that was Harold Macmillan, and I introduced him. 2 more. These are actually engaged, apparently, in unnatural vice on a lilo near Knightsbridge. Enter a policeman. That sort of thing. That's visual. Policeman, to these two people you may have forgotten about who are at it. Consenting you may well be, sirs. Adults, certainly, but I would query the privacy of Lowndes Square. Teacher to class. This is where these jokes get very unlikely. There are always men who come up to you in pubs and say, you could use this on the telly, there's this nun going down to this monk. You can clean it up for the telly, you know, you could use it. Oh. I call them 8-foot bores, because what happens is, after they've told you the joke, you suddenly realise you're 8 foot away from the pint of bitter you started at. Schoolroom. Teacher at a class. I mean, this is so silly as to be laughable. Today we're going to spell 4-letter words. Terrific. Anybody know how to spell a 4-letter word? Small child. I could crouch for this, but I won't. Yes, miss. Teacher, right, Harry. Small child, Harry. F-U-C, teacher, quickly. That's in brackets. Be wary, Harry. Harry, M. Teacher, what does that spell? Harry, fuck 'em.
Got a cough? Got a bad cough? How would you like there to be on the market something that'll remove your cough and send it far away? Well, there is. It's new improved Far Cough. Far Cough? Yes, Far Cough.
Harry, what are those for?
Those 4? This geezer was sitting on a train, all by himself in a compartment. The train stopped at a station, little old lady got on, she sat right across from him. Anyway, the train started, little old lady took out her Bible, started to read. Train pulled into the next station, closed the Bible, put it away. When the train started again, took out the Bible, started to read. Every time the train stopped at a station, out the Bible. Every time it started again, she took it out, started to read. Well, he couldn't figure it out, so he leaned over and said, excuse me, darling, you're a nice old lady. I don't want to bother you, but why is it that every time the train stops, you put the Bible away? When the train starts, you go back to reading your Bible. Little old lady looked up and said, why don't you fuck off? Is that the, good Radio 2 joke?
I'm sorry, darling. I just don't know what went wrong.
It's just not good enough, Harry. Bad workman always blames his tool.
Can you imagine the Muppet Show doing pantomime with Little Red Riding Hood? Can you imagine Piggy and Kermie? Piggy as Red Riding Hood and Kermie in the bed as the wolf. Come in, Piggy. How about a frog's leg over? And jump to it. What big eyes you have. All the better to see you with, Piggy. Oh, Kermie, what a big nose you have. All the better to smell you with, Piggy. Oh, Kermie, what a big set of ears you have. All the better to hear you with, Piggy. Oh, Kermie, what a big mouth you have. All the better to gobble you with, Piggy. Gobble, gobble. Doesn't anybody screw anymore?
Do you like cocktails?
Oh, yes. Tell me one.
Waitress. Waitress. I'd like a cup of tea. Waitress, you've got a hamburger in your armpit.
Well, of course I have. That's how I'll keep it warm, you dummy.
Well, cancel the hot dog.
A lady walked into the bathroom and found her 13-year-old son having a wonderful time with himself in the bath. She said, "What are you doing?" He said, "It's mine and I'll wash it as fast as I want." Two choir boys sitting in church. One said to the other, "Is that Fanny Green in the front row?" He said, "No, it's the light from the stained glass window."
Anyway, this geezer goes to the House of Ill Repute and says to the madam, "I want a girl." She says, "We got lots of girls." He says, "You don't understand, I want a very special kind of girl. She's got to be tall and skinny, real skinny, like she hasn't eaten for a month, and dirty. Real dirty, mud all over the place. And the hair's got to be long and stringy and the gilberts dripping and mangy, you know what I mean? Sunken eyes, swollen stomach. Oh, she's got to look like she's been laying in a gutter for a year." Madam says, "I haven't got anything like that." She says, "Oh, there's no rush, take your time. Here's me number. When you find one, give me a call." 3 months goes by. She calls and says, "You won't believe this. I think I found exactly what you're looking for. Girl came in a few minutes ago, about 6'2", weighs 4 stone, hasn't eaten for a month, filthy hair, long matted with garbage, lice jumping all over the fucking place. Her eyes are black and blue, chest caved in, teeth missing." He says, "Great, that sounds perfect. Send her over." She arrives, Mess City. Makes you want to throw up just to look at her. He says, "Terrific. I want you to take all your clothes off, lay in front of the fire." She gets undressed, lays on the floor, in front of the fire. He brings his dog into the room. Beautiful Afghan hound. He says to the dog, "You see, if you don't eat your dog food, that's what you're going to look like." You know, before I found my true vocation in life, on a dole, I used to have a job selling drinks from door to door. Anyway, one night I was doing my rounds. I rang the bell of this cute little semi-detached in Easton. Little boy came to the door. I said, "Hello, sonny, is your mother at home?" He said, "No, she's out at work." I said, "Your mother works at night? What does she do?" He says, "She's a prostitute." I said, "Well, I'm a son of a bitch." He said, "So am I, but I don't go around bragging about it."
It's so nasty, it's so crude, all these jokes are very rude, and I love it.
Picture the scene. Des O'Connor died. Again, yes, not for the first time. Now, please. Now, don't be wicked about Des. Des is a wonderful man. Be fair. I mean, be honest. Des has done a great deal for this country. For the last 25 years, the government have been using his records to jam the Russian radar. And Des died and went to heaven. And St. Peter opened the Golden Gates. He said, "Yes." He said, "Des O'Connor." He said, "I believe so." He said, "I want to come into heaven." And St. Peter said, "You haven't got a prayer. No chance whatsoever." He said, "Well, why not?" He said, "Before you come into heaven, you have to pay a penance." He said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, you have to do something." He said, "Well, what penance?" He said, "You have your choice of 2. The first penance is this. You see that old woman over there with the grey, greasy hair and the one eye and the one tooth and the varicose veins?" He said, "Yes." He said, "You have to make love to her 3 times a day for the next 2 years." And Des said, "I couldn't handle that." So he said, "Well, what's my alternative?" He said, "You have to go to hell for 2 years." He said, "Well, show me hell." And St. Peter opened this door, and out came the flames and the cries of the tormented souls. And Des said, "No, I don't fancy that. Let's have a look at the old bird." So he took him back again, and there's this old lady, and Des said, "Look, can we do a deal? Could I just make love to her once a day for the next 2 years?" He said, "No, it's got to be 3 times a day." So Des said, "OK, I'll take a chance." And he got hold of the old lady and walked away. And as he walked away, he looked over his shoulder, and there was Max Bygraves with Wonder Woman. And Des said, "That's not fair." And St. Peter said, "Wonder Woman's penance has got nothing to do with you."
The Kenny Everett Naughty Joke Box.
Well, that's it, the sound of the show. And we hope that you have enjoyed it and that you feel that the money was wisely invested. And if you didn't enjoy it, too late, we got your money. And now it's time for the old sickly showbiz ending. Good night.